I now convene the August 2020 meeting of the Executive Committee. Will the recording secretary please call roll?
Tina Sloan.
Here.
Alicia Hine.
Present.
C. Michael Cooney.
Here.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo. Kevin Kang.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have one action item before us today, agenda item 2A, the appointment. I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Good. All right. Agenda item 2A is the appointment of the Educator Preparation Student Liaison. The item is being presented by Rhonda Brown. Ms. Brown, please begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Commission's policy manual allows the Executive Committee to appoint an Educator Preparation student to serve as a liaison to the Commission. An announcement for applications for the upcoming term was sent by email to the Deans and Directors of Preparation Programs over several weeks, and the information was also posted on the Commission's website. Staff worked with Commissioners Brown, Marks, and Simmons to review applications and select candidates to interview. 11 applications were received, and the panel selected 4 finalists for interviews, which were held via Zoom on July 30th. A list of the finalists is included in your agenda item, along with their essay of interest. If there are no questions for staff, I would like to let the panel provide additional information on the interviews and to give their recommendation to the committee.
Good morning, Commissioners. I've just got on. I was put on as a regular person to watch, not someone to participate. So I just popped on. Sorry for the delay. I just wanted to tell everyone, all of you commissioners, I would encourage you someday to have an opportunity to be part of selecting the Educator Preparation Student Liaison. Janie and David Simmons and I had a rich, not only a rich discussion, but a deep and diverse pool of students. And Lindsay, I hope you're smiling on this because you were part of the last one. And we were challenged to choose those who we would interview. We could have been on interviews for days. We chose 4 candidates to interview. Again, all of them were very strong. We had non-traditional candidates, candidates who had experience with administration, candidates who had been both undergraduate and graduate, and so we're happy to recommend one of the 4 candidates. Corey Jones is you've probably already read all of the documents, but she's in special ed and multiple subjects, very articulate. She asked very strong clarifying questions, is very committed to diversity, recognizes that we failed in education, equity, access, and agency, and has done some really interesting things in her community. So with that, the committee would like to recommend Corey Jones to the Executive Committee for consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. We will now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
There is no public comment.
Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. All commissioners are welcome to participate, but only an executive committee member can make a motion and vote on this item. On this note, do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Martinez.
Hi, I just want to thank the committee who interviewed and did such a diligent job, but also I'm just really pleased to see the number of applicants, especially during this really kind of unprecedented time. So a big shout out to all of those who applied, and thank you for the committee and your selection process and the diligence you did.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. Commissioner Cooney.
When the commissioners finish with comments, Madam Chair, I would move that the executive committee accept the recommendation of the panel.
All right. So I have a motion to appoint Corey Jones to the Educator Preparation Student Liaison position. Sorry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hind. Are there additional commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Marks?
I just want to say that sometimes when you're in education in the classroom for as long as I've been, you kind of get a little down, and being a part of this application process was like so inspiring and so uplifting to see all these young teachers with such charge and energy and creativity and courage to take it on. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to participate. And it was to all of the applicants who are all very articulate. Thank you very much. And I welcome you into our challenging yet rewarding profession.
Thank you, Commissioner Marks. It reminds me of why I think every teacher educator, I would always say when I was director of our teacher ed program that I had the best job in the world. I was the luckiest person because every year we had this bright, dedicated, amazing young people and older people who wanted to come in and do this work. Any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Tina Sloan,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Kevin Kern,
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I want to thank our interview panel. Even though it looks like you had a great time, it was also extra effort on your part when we're all so busy. I also want to congratulate our new student liaison, Corey Jones. And I would very much like to thank Lindsay Valadoy for her service to the commission. And I wish her all the best on your future endeavors, Lindsay. And please drop us a line every now and then. We would love to hear how you're doing and how your students are. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great experience being on this commission and being able to see behind the scenes and just being able to see the leadership process, especially during all of these uncertain times. It's just so nice to have a strong leadership behind us. So it's been an honor, and thank you. And I hope distance learning goes on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valadoy, and perhaps we will see you someday as part of the commission, part of our work groups. Don't forget us. This concludes the business of the executive committee. The committee is adjourned. I now convene the August 6th and 7th, 2020 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Kirsten Barnes.
Present.
Catherine Williams Brown.
Present.
C. Michael Cooney.
Here.
Marisol Del Torre Escobedo. I'm sorry. Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Makita Gwynno Shire.
Present.
Johanna Harwick.
Present.
Alicia Hine.
Present.
Terry Jackson.
Here.
Bonnie Cloud, Kevin Kern,
Present.
Jan Marks,
Here.
Cynthia Martin,
I'm here.
Monica Martinez,
Here.
David Simmons, Tina Sloan,
Here.
Andrew Wall.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Executive Director Sandy, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to direct the my picture to the flag. Please stand. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a few minutes to remind everyone about the meeting process before we get to today's agenda. Because many of us are working remotely, this meeting is being conducted via Zoom. Staff is maintaining a minimal presence in the commission building, but everyone else is participating from their own locale. We'd like you to know that everyone's microphone is muted to eliminate any background noise that may hinder others from hearing what's being said. Commissioners and presenters can unmute yourself, but please mute your microphone after you're done speaking. Zoom identification. We'd like to ask that everyone check their Zoom identification and make sure it contains your first and last name accurately. This is very important for those who want to make public comment, so we're able to call on you appropriately, and also so that we can get all names accurately recorded in the record. Commissioners, some of you may be using the video audio functions and some of you will be using audio only. Commissioners that would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Because this is a teleconference meeting, we need to conduct each vote by roll call. This is going to take a little time, so please bear with us. Just before the vote, we will remind everyone to make sure you are unmuted so that we don't miss anyone's vote. There's a time designated for public comment. If you wish to speak on a specific item, please email your request to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253 and indicate which item you wish to speak to so we can make sure to call on you at the appropriate time. Please make sure the request includes your full name, your phone number, if participating through phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name used to join the meeting. The meeting host will call your name and give you the ability to unmute your microphone to share your comment during the public comment period. After you finish your comment, your microphone will be muted by the meeting host. Each of our committee chairs will have the discretion to set a time limit on comments depending on the volume of speakers seeking to speak on a particular item. We ask that you keep your remarks brief and focused on the particular item you're speaking to. You will get a 1-minute warning and will be asked to finish your sentence before being muted by the meeting host. Recording, also just like an in-person meeting, this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commission's website. Okay. Next, I'd like to congratulate Heide Rodriguez on her new role on the State Board as the State Board lead for the Commission. Are you confused? Ms. Rodriguez stepped down from the Commission, was appointed to the State Board of Education in June by Governor Newsom. Though happy for her, the loss of Commissioner Rodriguez left us with a heavy heart. And I thought I would be saying, okay. Instead, I can say that on behalf of the Commission and its staff, I'd like to officially welcome you as the State Board of Education Liaison. We're happy that we are able to continue working with you on the important and challenging work of this agency. Would you like to say anything, Commissioner Heide?
No. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Just how happy I am to be back. I was in this capacity when the news of the appointment came in. We had just finished our meeting, and I, was really sad that we didn't get to formally say goodbye. And not just that, I didn't want to say goodbye. And, as luck would have it, I'm here, and I don't want to say replacing Eileen Strauss because she's irreplaceable, but, you know, stepping into her shoes. So, and I also want to take this moment to thank Eileen for her tremendous work as a liaison. And I have big shoes to fill, which I'll try to fill some in a little bit. So thank you. Good to see everyone.
I too would like to thank Eileen Strauss for her long service to the Commission as the State Board Liaison. I know I personally look forward to her updates. I thought they were very revealing and informative and relevant to our work. We really value the perspective that she brought to the Commission, and I know you join me in wishing her the very best in her future endeavors. All right, item 3A is the approval of the June 2020 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the June 2020 minutes? So moved by, I have a motion by Commissioner Cooney. I'm sorry, I should probably call on you. Commissioner Cooney. You're on mute.
I wish you hadn't asked me to mute earlier. I will move approval of the excellent minutes of the June 18-19 meeting, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Marks?
I second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Marks. Discussion? Seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Kirsten Barnes,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
Perry Jackson,
Aye.
Kevin Kern,
Aye.
Jane Marks,
Aye.
Cynthia Martin,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is 3B, approval of the August 2020 agenda. We have an agenda insert for item 3C. I'm missing some things. Do I have a motion to approve the August 2020 agenda? Commissioner Martinez?
I so move that we approve the agenda.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Barnes?
I second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Barnes. Will the recording secretary call for discussion? My apologies. Discussion? Seeing none, will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Kirsten Barnes,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
Perry Jackson,
Aye.
Kevin Kern,
Aye.
Jim Marks,
Aye.
Cynthia Martin,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Agenda item 3C is approval of the August 2020 consent calendar. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Okay. Seeing none. Do I have a motion to approve items on the consent calendar? Commissioner Hartwig?
I move to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Kung?
I second. Motion.
All right. Will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Kirsten Barnes,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney, Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
Perry Jackson,
Aye.
Kevin Kern,
Aye.
Jane Marks,
Aye.
Cynthia Martin,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. We've been hard at work, all of us here today, and our agenda reflects both the attention to the moment we're in and also the fact that our work is continuing and moving forward. But for both, I think we have a heightened awareness of the lenses through which we're filtering, or must filter all of our work, the lenses of equity and justice and anti-racism. Here at the Commission, I know that we're continuing to learn each in our own ways and together. And we have new opportunities to learn and do things differently with our strategic planning that we're going to hear about today. This is going to give us opportunities to create what's needed. It's going to give us an opportunity to bring in others to offer diverse perspectives and helping us what we do. And our agenda also reflects other new work that we're creating, our special education TPA, the revision of our CSTPs, the adaptations of our work in a time of distance learning. All of these are opportunities to really relook at our work through new lenses. As a field, our whole field, we're learning too. Teachers, administrators, teacher educators have been busier than ever this summer. And I believe at this moment, many of us are tired, but those of you who are parents are even more tired. You have double the workload and the anxiety. But as tough and discouraging and scary as COVID is, and as tough and discouraging and shameful racism is, in terms of education and in terms of our work, I think it's offering us an opportunity to stop everything and look deeply. If there is any silver lining, one has been the opportunity to see more clearly in the quiet. When the noise has been cut off, cars left streets open, water cleared because machines aren't churning it up, we're able to see what are complicated lives covered up. In terms of our work here, the work of teachers, administrators, counselors, teacher educators, all of our school personnel, more than ever, perhaps is an opportunity for laser-focused attention on what our P12 and higher education students need. This is what I've been seeing as I've conducted my work, our work this summer. We have new lenses we keep developing to critique and guide our work. But more than that, we have an opportunity to focus on what's essential in this moment. Our kids, our students, from cradle to career, we have opportunities to, I think, bridge our work between higher ed and P12 in that common cause. The constant noise of how schools can and should and shouldn't and must open has taken a toll on all of us. The constant worry about how to prepare educators in this environment has taken a toll on all of us. But I think our opportunity over the next 2 days and over the next year is to allow ourselves to first focus on what our P12 students need and our higher ed students need, and design our work in preparing educators, administrators, nurses, counselors around that. Here at the Commission, we need to offer guidance. We need to ensure students and parents that educators will that they receive are prepared to do what they need. But we also have to learn with the moment. We get to innovate our work. We get to see how educator preparation can innovate their work. We get to and must think outside previous boxes. We get to look at the whole totality of our credentialing system, the different tiers it presents, the span of an educator's career, perhaps. We do not know what our 2020-21 school year will look like. We know some things, and we're learning new things every day. And if we can keep our eye on the ball, our P12 students, and if we create a system that allows us in preparation programs flexibility to do what's needed in the moment, I think we can do great things, maybe even better than we've ever done. It may even be a paradigm shift. In educator preparation, we may be asking our school districts, not what can you do for me to help prepare new teachers, but what can we do for you, with you, to support all of our educators in schools to do what our students need. That doesn't mean we're providing childcare and tutors. We're providing developing professionals, and we're providing opportunities for these developing professionals to bring their expertise, much of which will be different from mentor teachers. They've oftentimes experienced more distance learning environments than our mentor teachers have. And how can we work together to support our students? That could be our focus and our guide, I think. So I look forward to our next 2 days together. And I would now like to turn it over to Executive Director Mary Sandy for the Director's Report.
Thank you so much, Chair Sloan, for those inspiring words. I think that July might have been the break. I hope you took it because it's August. And we are now in a frenzy in our systems, preparing for the whatever school looks like in the coming weeks. And I almost feel we need a moment of silence for the teachers who are preparing wildly for a completely different way of doing their work, and for our teacher educators and our faculty and our students. The thing about paradigm shifts, at least as I'm experiencing this one, is that it doesn't end one day and start anew the next. It's kind of a grinding uphill process to really get our minds and our mindsets about where we are and what we're doing to move into a new way of looking. And I so appreciate the opportunity as you framed it, Chair Sloan. I've so appreciated the many conversations we've had about the implications of this moment for all of our work. And it is a profound moment of change and opportunity, despite how grueling sometimes it may feel for all of us. So here at the Commission, we are with you. The staff has been working tirelessly, really. They usually do. That's their norm here at the Commission, is to work fairly tirelessly. They're a very focused and dedicated group of people. But since March, I don't know whether it's almost been like a moral imperative to look for every single possible way in which we could support the communities that work in our sphere. And I've been so proud of the team and the ways in which they have examined our opportunities and our policies and our standards and our requirements and provided guidance and support and technical assistance. There wasn't much of a break from that in July, and there's more coming, and we have a large agenda item to begin our meeting with, focused on COVID-19, where we are and where we still need to really do some work. But it's a good moment, really. It's a good moment if we can keep our energy about us and our optimism about us on most days. We've had 2 retirements this month. Katie Croy just retired from a position in the Professional Services Division. She's been a key member of the accreditation team and just an all-around good egg, willing to put herself into any work situation where she might be needed, and her own optimism and energy will be missed by us. Wayne Baser also has retired from our performance assessment team. He has been with the Commission for, I think, just over a decade, and his work has really been focused on the performance assessment, providing technical assistance to the field as they've implemented performance assessments and being a key part of the updating of our systems. So these 2 professional staff will be missed. We are recruiting for positions to keep the work going in every way we can, but we wish them well. I also just want to take this moment to thank our student liaison, Ms. Balladay. You've been great, and we have so appreciated your presence here and your perspectives on all of this work from the point of entry. And we wish you very good luck and every good wish as you move into your teaching work. And also, it was a devastating blow to lose Aide Rodriguez as a commissioner, but very comforting to have you back. We're not going to miss a single commission meeting with you now that, thankfully, the state board has asked you to be our liaison. So very glad to see you here in the room with us. And looking forward to a great meeting, commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have items to report? Commissioner Barnes?
Hello, everyone. Not so much a report, but just kind of a statement now that I've been back at work. Well, I never really was off work, but I just want everyone when the school year starts, however you're starting, I know everyone's emotions are high, whether you're hybrid, you're in person, working from home, can bring your children, can't bring your children. There's just a lot. How are we going to get this done? What if the kids don't check in? I'm also on my district's negotiation team, and that's just been very taxing and very, because you can't please everyone. And I just hope when the first day hits, no matter when that is for everybody, in your classroom, whether it's virtual, whatever, just take a deep breath. I mean, we had walked through the last couple days where we got to see some of our students because all of our freshmen had to come get their Chromebooks. So just being able to say hi and tell them it's going to be okay, take a deep breath, even though in the back of my head, I don't know if it's going to be okay. But I just hope all the teachers, when they start their lessons the first day, they take a moment not to just jump right into it, but to just say hi, how you doing, check in, say hi to each other. It's been nice to kind of see my colleagues from a distance with a mask, but at least seeing people I haven't seen for 3 or 4 months. So just while we went and check in on our students, check in on each other, check in on your staff, check in on your admin, check on your classified, and it's okay to tell someone, I need a minute, I need a break. It's okay to tell each other, I'm struggling here, because I know it's hard for everyone, whether you're a parent, you're an educator, you're a counselor, you're an administrator, social worker. The mental health of our students is heavy on our minds, and how we're going to get to our students when we can't physically get to them. So we're all trying to get creative of how we're going to make them comfortable to reach out. So just wanted to say that, and I have to remind myself that, take a deep breath, reach out and ask questions. And as we've been trying to talk in our staff, what we start tomorrow might change the next day, might change the next day, might change the next day, because this is uncharted waters. And I even know at the high school now that we have a plan and some parents aren't happy with the plan, so they want to put their kids on independent study. We could have kids leaving school every day to go to our independent study versus the online class that we're doing. So anyway, just take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Francois.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all again. And thank you, Commissioner Barnes, for those important reminders. I too want to say that I am 100% inspired by the phenomenal work that educators across the system have done over the summer in preparation for schools to begin. And I want to give a special shout out to our teacher educators and our field supervisors, because now they are facing, how do we do this beginning as early as next week with a new cohort of teacher candidates. So prior to the shelter-in-place orders, the UC teacher education programs had begun an initiative to create a professional learning community across the system, specifically for field supervisors. As you can imagine, that work in this time now has become much more complex than we ever imagined it. And so last week, or it may have been 2 weeks ago, on July 29th and 30th, they hosted a conference, a virtual conference for field supervisors, both in the UCs, but also in the CSU and private institutions. And this conference was sponsored by the California Teacher Education Research and Improvement Network. It was a 2-day conference, and it was entitled Developing a Community of Supervisors for Equity and Justice. And the keynote at that event was Dr. Tyrone Howard from UCLA, and his keynote was around anti-racism and teacher preparation, and really lifted up the challenges and possibilities for engaging teacher educators in really authentic and hard conversation, developing strategies and policies to dismantle racism in teacher education. It was attended by over 100 teacher educators across the state, which I thought was amazing. And the focus was really on creating a race-conscious classroom space for our teacher preparation students. I think in this moment in time, we have been reminded that racism has existed. This country was founded on racist ideas, and it simmered over the summer. And the fact that our teacher education community has decided to tackle this head on and publicly really gives me hope for the future. I think in times like this, hopelessness and despair tends to trend in our heads, and we can't do that. We have to be optimistic, and we have to support one another through this process. And so I just wanted to share that particular activity with everyone, because I think we're seeing a shift in educator preparation that are taking up these critical equity and justice issues in ways that we've never seen in the past. And I am just inspired by it. And if the other commissioners have a chance to sit in on some of these webinars and activities, I would really encourage you to do so, because it's what gets me to the place that Commissioner Barnes spoke of moments ago. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Francois. And I'll just say I also had an opportunity to participate in that conference, and it was awesome. And it gave me an opportunity not only to get to see what on the ground, what people are doing and grappling with, but I also wanted to say we have two keynote speakers, and the other was Dr. Rita Coley from UC Riverside, and she talked about racial climate within teacher education programs. It was also spectacularly enlightening. And the other thing I would just note is that the generosity of everyone who conducted the conference to share resources, I mean, really good things that supervisors can take right now into their own practice and use. And I'd say the community of the California Teacher Education Research and Improvement Network, and the people which we call CITERN, and the people who conducted that conference are putting each of those pieces together to share with everybody in the field. So as soon as we have that ready, it will be any day now, we will make those resources and those 45-minute webinars available for the whole field. All right, and I'll let you know how we can do that. Commissioner Brown.
Anna Marie, thank you. That was most inspiring, and it continues to make me glad and make me feel like I continue to be an enthusiast about bringing early childhood education into the public education sphere, because what you both describe is something that the community colleges often aren't in, because we're not considered a fully functional, fully involved part of the teacher preparation field, and yet we are. So I wanted to tell you of a couple of things that I think are just are helpful to know. All summer long, the community colleges have been conducting what we call communities of practice that have included faculty, staff, child development center directors, school age people that are involved in school age work, in early childhood education and state preschool, to talk about the very things that Commissioner Barnes was talking about, and really trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? What do we do? What makes sense? So we've also participated in the COVID confusion, as everyone else has. But in doing that, it's really given us, as Chair Sloan talked about, opportunities to do something with the predicament that we're in. And these communities of practice have really been strong and helpful and collaborative in terms of feeling like you're not alone and isolated trying to figure out just for yourself what you're trying to do at your own school or your own classroom or your own community, but that it's something that we, working together, we can do better. Along those lines, the participants in the community of practice were also already so involved that when we started looking at ECE flexibilities, we were able to get a work group together for the commission in a day's time. And so I guess the other part I just want to say is, you know, the hallmark of planet Earth species is adaptation. Mm-hmm. And it's not always fun. And we don't want to leave some people behind as others adapt. And so that piece, again, Anna Marie, what you were talking about is so critical to look at. So the second little piece, more local piece that I just wanted to let you know is that probably the most challenging in the community college teacher preparation programs has been around what do we do, many things, but one of them in particular for preparation programs is what do we do with our supervised field experience and practicum. And I'd just like to tell you that we've come up with some fabulous ideas that include, rather than the professor in the past being the only one that went to visit each supervising teacher and their student teacher, that we're working together now to build, this innovation is so inclusive. We're building these fieldwork communities of practice with our mentor teachers and the master teachers that are currently working in the child development centers on campus, many of whom will be closed because the campuses are closed. So being able to bring these people together, last night we had a meeting with them and it was just charged with electricity of excitement. Not unlike the interviews that we had, Janie and David, with the students. And that kind of, to be able to put together some new ways that we've never done it, as the mentor teachers and the master teachers said to us, well, this sounds great and let's give it a try. Is it perfect? We don't know. But is it better than just sitting back and feeling bad and confused? No, it's best. If we're going to be dealing with and continuing to educate from cradle to career, then let's embrace it. And it will be innovative. Of course, you remember, I'm also from the Bay Area, so entrepreneurship is also part of our DNA. But actually, I'm very enthusiastic about it. And I just wanted to share that enthusiasm.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown, for your enthusiasm and reminding me about one of my favorite terms when I think about our work, communities of practice. Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Hind.
Good morning. I too wanted to talk about distant learning for a minute. While distant learning is not ideal, it does present an opportunity for teachers to take our profession to a higher level and to show that even in difficult situations, we can rise up and ensure that no student in our state falls behind. As educators, we've been fighting for years to be seen as professionals, and now is our chance. I want to highlight one teacher in particular. Her name is Maria Montez. She's a former colleague of mine. And she took distant learning last semester and worked in ways for her students to have hands-on experiences, especially in mathematics. Even though all of her students were working from home, they had moments of hands-on interactive learning every single day. And I want to hear more stories about teachers working outside the box, elevating our profession. I want to hear stories about how teachers are training their parents to be actual virtual helpers, to work in breakout rooms so students receive small group instruction. I want to hear stories about districts who make sure that students don't just have a Chromebook, but have construction paper, glue, crayons, access to the resources that will make at-home learning engaging and meaningful. A lot of the stories I've been hearing in the media lately have been demands that what teachers won't do. And I know that it's always the negative and the loudest that get the press, but there are a lot of teachers who want to do this right. And my worry with those stories of I don't want more than an hour and a half of FaceTime instruction with students or whatever that story is that if we keep fighting to minimize the amount of time that students are connecting with us through virtual learning, we're going to be proving the point that they don't actually need us. And we know that's not true. So it's time that we get creative and make sure that our students don't suffer any more than they already are. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hind. Creativity is definitely needed in this moment, and excited, it makes me hopeful. Commissioner Kung.
Thank you. I just want to update everyone of what I see happening here at LA Unified and at my school with distance learning due to COVID. In LAUSD, it'll start in the fall in about 2 weeks with online education only, like most students in California. Most teachers that I work with are already working hard to pivot all the curriculum to be online. I know many teachers, including myself, still have questions about synchronous versus asynchronous teaching requirements, but we all share a common goal that all students be able to learn and grow effectively and safely online. In LAUSD, each school day will be required to have some type of live online interaction. Yes. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you not hear me?
It's a little difficult. I thought maybe try.
Can you guys hear me?
And
I don't know. Okay.
Try
Sorry.
that.
I don't know where I left off, but in LAUSD, each school day will be required to have some sort of live online interaction for students. There will be an advisory time help support the social emotional needs of students.
I muted his mic, so go ahead.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, I know. Commissioner Kung,
hello?
Can you try to stop?
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Try to stop your video and then let's see if we get a better connection.
Okay, well, maybe I have to say this because I think there's audio issues.
It's going to have to call in.
Now. I'm sorry. But I just think...
Kevin, Commissioner Kung, you're going to need to dial in.
Now.
Yeah. Commissioner Kung, can you hear me? Can you, if you look on, can you dial in instead with your phone? The dial-in instructions are on the email.
Okay, yeah, I'll try dialing in and maybe I can my comment later.
While you're dialing in, I will go to Commissioner Martin, but if we can get you set up on your phone, then we'll be able to hear you. Does that sound okay? Yeah. All right. So while Commissioner Kung is doing that, I would like to ask Commissioner Martin, please, to make her comment.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sloan. I'll do a sound check. How's my sound?
All good.
Great. Good morning, everybody, and to my colleagues on the commission and everybody watching. I'll echo the comments and just add from San Diego Unified's perspective, being ready to start the year online is so important that we get this right, and adapting to this idea that all or many of our kids are going to be learning online for the year ahead meant that we needed to make sure that we had a solid plan, and the lessons that we learned from the springtime feedback from our students and from our families and from our teachers and across the city, what worked and what didn't work and how to improve, allowed us to build a robust as possible model to go forward for the fall. And so that's why we just announced this week, we concluded our negotiations with our San Diego Education Association, and we rolled out our announcement this past week that we have 6 hours of learning every day. I think it's important that we understand the importance of teaching and learning and that interaction. While we can't do it yet in person, we have to come up with the most robust ways of doing that, attending to social emotional and making sure academics matters. And so that there's time for daily live instruction. There's a 6-hour school day with customized learning experiences for all students, K-12. All students are going to have daily live instruction and interaction with their teachers via video conferencing. We distributed 50,000 Chromebooks in the spring, and making sure everybody has their computer and their connectivity, that we all but close the digital divide so that everybody's able to learn. And I think it's really important that teachers do what teachers do best. They differentiate and they customize the learning experiences based on students' needs. That's the craft. That's what our profession does, and that's what we do best. And so we built our model that includes daily live online instruction up to 3 hours. We have independent learning up to 2 hours that's guided and directed and designed with teachers and students in mind. And then students are going to be working with each other in small group and participating in educator office hours, at least 1 hour a day, where the educators will have their office hours to connect with students and families to customize what's going to work best for them. And we wanted to make sure every elementary student gets instruction in reading, writing, math, science, social studies, physical education, and the arts. We cannot forget arts education and physical education, even though we have to start online, that there are really creative and robust ways that we can teach the arts, and the VAPA standards matter, and the physical education standards matter. And we say that science is what's going to get us out of this, but the arts are going to be what get us through this. And for a lot of our kids, the arts is a way to connect. So we're going to continue to work to bring all of our students back to campus as soon as it's safe and responsible to do so. And in the meantime, we have to ensure that our students can continue to learn and make academic progress, and that their social emotional needs are attended to while we do that. And we've convened a local panel with UCSD doctors, 10 of them, a virologist, epidemiologist, pediatric specialist, infectious disease specialist, and we'll be coming out with their report on Monday, talking about what the safe path to reopening is going to be so we can get kids physically back on campus. So continuing with the work, and the work of this commission could not be more important. And it's an honor to work with everybody on this team. And my gratitude to our teachers, our educators, and all staff, and to the parents that are key partners in everything that we're doing here in this environment. So thank you for the opportunity to say good morning to everybody and give a little update of what's going on down here at the bottom of the state in San Diego Unified School District.
Thank you, Commissioner Martin. That sounds awesome. I was going to especially thank you and all of our teachers who are here, because this is such a crazy time. And so we are so appreciative that you are able to take this time to be with us. And many of our educator commissioners are just needing to start school this week and couldn't be here today. So I'm also very pleased, Commissioner Klum, that you were also able to be here, and it looks like you're able to connect by phone now, yes?
Yes, I'm connected by phone now.
Excellent, we can hear you well. So would you please start from the beginning of your comment?
Okay, I'm sorry earlier about that. So I just wanted to update everyone about what I see happening here at LAUSD and at my School of Distance Learning due to COVID. In LAUSD, we'll be starting the fall semester in about 2 weeks, online only, like most students in California. Most teachers that I work with are already working hard to pivot their fall curriculum to be online. I know many teachers, including myself, still have questions about synchronous versus asynchronous teaching requirements, but we all share a common goal that all students be able to learn and grow effectively and safely online. At LAUSD, each school will be required to have some live online interaction for students. And there will be an advisory time period to help support the social emotional needs of students. I'm personally starting to reorganize my curriculum using different online tools, including recording my lectures and transforming them such that students must answer interactive questions on the topics. Also found many online labs and simulations that can substitute for the hands-on nature of a science classroom. Most of the labs and simulations can easily be found doing a simple Google search. One I wanted to highlight that I played around with the other night is something called Merlot, spelled the same as the red wine. It was created by the CSUs as a collection of peer and user-reviewed online science lab resources. I found lots of interactive math tools on there as well. I looked at the site last night and saw many online labs I used in the spring and new ones that I hope to be trying out with my students in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kung. It's so helpful to hear about the specifics of practice that teachers are thinking about and doing and engaging in right now. That really helps our work. Thank you. Are there any other commissioner reports? All right. Agenda item 3G, do any liaisons have items to report? Commissioner Rodriguez.
Hello again. So I want to again thank Eileen Strauss for her tremendous work as liaison to the CTC. And I told her when she handed over the baton that she's leaving very big and fashionable shoes for me to fill. So, but she's, you know, tremendous in her scope of knowledge and depth, and with, you know, everything that, in all of the areas that she's involved in on the state board. And so, although my report today will be general, I don't yet have the knowledge to have it be as rich. So here goes. We met in July, a couple of weeks after we had our CTC meeting. And as Eileen had mentioned at the CTC meeting, because of we didn't have the state testing, so we're not going to have a dashboard for the schools, right? So this has been confirmed. There are, you know, still a lot of questions as schools set to reopen. A guidance plan for schools was developed, and I've heard some mention to some of the work that everybody's doing here. And the guidance has been informed by CDE and the Department of Public Health. Face coverings must be worn by all staff and students, and the governor has sent PPE to 10,000 schools throughout the state. However, most schools will be opening with their online distance learning. And so there's still many questions, and some of the things that I will tell you will be direct quotes from either Tony Thurmond or President Linda Darling-Hammond. Many questions regarding you know, how schools will reopen safely. The biggest, you know, as Superintendent Martin mentioned, Commissioner Martin, closing the digital divide and, you know, some of those infrastructure barriers. That's one of the biggest issues. And it also ties in with the equity issue because a lot of, you know, some students are having completely different experiences based on their zip code in the schools that they're attending, and you know, may have very robust lessons, whereas other students are really struggling just to check in every day. So these are all things that are on the radar, if you will, of the state board. And President Linda Darling-Hammond and Superintendent Tony Thurmond are working as much as possible with the stakeholder groups to make sure that these are closed. So there's a counseling coalition to fill in some of the gaps, especially the social and emotional gaps, the nutrition gaps, right? And making sure that the students are, the students that we lost that didn't check in when we went into the pandemic response in March, to find out how we can make sure that those students come back in. And so there's a theme that I've heard in all of your reports this morning, from Chair Sloan to Commissioner reports to Director Sandy. And I keep hearing arts and creativity. And I really, this is my personal opinion, I believe that it's that creative thinking and the adaptability, as Commissioner Brown said, that will get us through this, because there's so many unknowns. This is an unpredictable situation. To quote President Darling Hammond, it's historical in the sense that we have a public, economic, and civil rights crisis happening simultaneously. And so, you know, we really need to come together to support our students, our student teachers, and our educator preparation. So one of the, Tony Thurmond he's hosted webinars to support students with special needs, virtual support circles for parents, students, teachers, and administrators and educators. And they're convening conversations, both President Linda Darling Hammond and Superintendent Thurmond, about school safety, discussions about policing in schools, ways that we can have equity and use restorative justice practices, and other types of way of keeping schools safe, and really having robust conversations around the issue of police in schools. So one of the things that President Darling Hammond mentioned in her report is that the decisions that we make have to be governed by purpose rather than by place. And all of our efforts have to be continuous, right? With an intention for the continuous, using formative assessments, you know, and this is for whether it's teacher prep or we're working with our students, using useful formative assessments, as authentic as possible, so that people are learning to learn, our students, our student teachers, and that we're creating a world beyond Zoom, even within these confines. And so that the learning is authentic and it's integrated with social and emotional learning. And these 4 points that I just mentioned are pivotal to the work that we want to move forward. And while learning loss is you know, an expression that's big on everybody's mind, how are our students going to catch up? You know, we want to have good formative assessments to deal with the continuous progress, rather than looking at it as a deficit approach, and creating instructional materials with connections to what the students are learning. You know, we have to look at equitable school funding, because there's such an inequity of what teachers and students have experienced. And let's see here, you know, we need to look at, be able to measure the losses so that we can build on that and make sure that we have our students caught up. So these are the priorities, right? And at the core of that, their equity is guiding these decisions. And there's a new position that was created at the state board, and that is a deputy superintendent of equity. And so that position is being grant funded and is new, and you know, we'll be looking at a lot of these issues. And there's also another grant to provide implicit bias training to 10,000 schools in the state. And, you know, and this is important, and this is important for our teacher preparation as well. I'm still saying R, like, because, you know, I'm R. But anyway, for teacher preparation, right, the implicit biases. And this implicit bias training is actually going to start at the State Department and be provided to the school sites. And let's see here. And so speaking of the arts, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but when we were looking at the standards for teachers and we looked at theater, I asked about Theater of the Oppressed. And so I was very excited to hear an Augusto Boal, who's, you know, the creator of Theater of the Oppressed in the vein of Paulo Freire. He was actually quoted in the frameworks that we just adopted in July. So we adopted the VAPA framework and we adopted the World Language frameworks, and they're beautiful. They're so complete. And there was an Augusto Boal quote, and I thought, you know, this is in line with the arts and equity and expression. And the quote, you know, theater is a form of knowledge. It should and can also be a means of transforming society. Theater can help us build our future rather than just waiting for it. You know, and as we look at the racial inequities and as we look at the economic inequities that we're facing, going into that creativity and tapping into, you know, whether it's starting with little children to high school to college, arming students with creative skills will definitely have creating a more adaptable society. So that, anyway, those frameworks were adopted. And we also had we have 3 new state board members, me being one of them. We were sworn in at the July meeting. Cynthia Woods, she's a Riverside Associate Superintendent, and James McQuillan, who is the first Yurok tribe member to serve on the State Board of Education. So it's a very exciting time, and I believe that is all. So does anyone have any questions? I'll go on mute.
Thank you, Liaison Rodriguez. And you just keep saying our because you're still ours and we'll share you, but we still get to have you. So we're very pleased. That was a very informative report. Okay, so Commissioner Marks, you have your hand raised.
Well, just real briefly, I'd like to just throw out a very concrete resource that people of the state, administrators and teachers and families can use. The Sacramento Public Waldorf Collaborative Community has created a truly artistic and creative curriculum across the grade levels, across all subjects. I guess the latest lingo is UDL, Universal Design, definitely inclusive. It's K-12. If you go to aliceburney.org and you look up families and you press the families project, you're going to see integrated thematic projects that people can do with academic work attached to that. It's artistic, it's creative, it's multicultural. So if you need inspiration to begin inspiring your students for the year, I encourage folks to do that. That's it.
Janie, I wonder if you could put that link in the chat, or is that not allowed? Rhonda maybe can advise me.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's allowed, but it is something we can find a way to maybe post in the minutes.
Great, thank you.
So.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Marks. Any other liaison reports? Okay. Item 3H is timeline and process for updating the Commission strategic plan. This item will be presented by Lynn Gwynn. Mr. Gwynn, will you please begin? You're muted, Mr. Gwynn.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Commissioners. Item 3H is an information item that provides an overview of the timeline and process that we will undertake during this year to update the Commission's strategic plan. By way of background, in December 2014, the Commission adopted its current 5-year strategic plan. Since that time, there have been significant changes in the policy environment, including the context of schooling during a pandemic, growing awareness of the impact of inequity and systemic racism in society, the election of a new governor and state superintendent of public instruction, and changes in the membership and leadership of the Commission. The Executive Director's priorities for 2020, which were presented to the Commission during the January 2020 Commission meeting, included engaging in strategic planning this year. Earlier this year, we hired Unleashing Leaders, a Sacramento-based consulting firm with experience in strategic planning development with state and governmental agencies to assist us with this effort. Our strategic planning process will involve surveying stakeholders and staff and engaging deeply with commissioners about the goals that will guide our work over the next 5 years. But rather than gathering information and disappearing to draft the plan, we're working in stages where we create parts of the plan, share it back out for feedback, incorporate that feedback, and then move to developing the next part of the plan. With the support of Unleashing Leaders, the Commission's leadership team will analyze and map the agency's current workload, anticipated projects, as well as the human and fiscal resources needed to develop an updated strategic plan. Figure 1 in Item 3H provides an overview of the major activities and timeframe for the work ahead. In mid-July, as part of our environmental scan, we will survey our external and internal stakeholders to obtain their feedback about our performance, how we can improve, and issues that lie ahead from their perspective. The survey went out on July 13th and responses are due on August 11th, this coming Tuesday. These responses will be compiled and analyzed to identify key challenges and trends. And then moving on to mid-September, we will use all of that information, analyze it, and create an initial draft of our mission, vision, goals, and values. This initial draft will be circulated for public feedback. And then at the October Commission meeting, we will present to you our methodology and findings and a draft strategic plan for discussion and feedback. We want to make sure we're on the right track before we get to the heavy lifting. In the October-November timeframe, we will take the Commissioner's feedback and finalize the strategic plan, create more specific objectives to each goal, and then we'll develop a work plan that lays out the projects and resources necessary to implement the strategic plan, establishes a governance structure to oversee implementation, and establishes a performance dashboard of key performance indicators that will help measure our progress over the next 5 years. At the December Commission meeting, we will present the final strategic plan for possible adoption. The deliverables will include a 5 to 10 page strategic plan, a performance dashboard with key performance indicators, a strategic portfolio with discrete initiatives we will undertake, a service portfolio with ongoing services that further our strategic goals, and finally a governance charter that defines our roles, responsibilities, and process for monitoring performance and making cross-functional decisions. If you feel any changes to the strategic plan are necessary at the December meeting, we will make those changes and present the revised plan at the following Commission meeting. With that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gwynn. We will now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
No, we do not have any public comment requests.
Okay. Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Brown.
This is a short one. Thank you for that report, and the lineup of the process sounds very inclusive, and I think that's really important. One of the things that I've noticed over the last several months on the commission is the various work groups that have been working on different aspects of the commission's work often end up having some suggestions or ideas or questions about the very things that the strategic plan addresses, particularly in communication and in operational effectiveness. And I just wondered if there's a way that some of those questions and suggestions might be looked at and incorporated rather than only through this stakeholder survey.
Absolutely. We plan to keep our eyes and ears open for anything that might be addressed through the strategic planning process. And if we do miss anything, hopefully it can be raised when our initial drafts are presented, which is why we're going through this staged process rather than, doing all the work and then, dropping a plan on your lap.
Thank you. And I know that the staff always works with those work groups, and often when they give their very comprehensive reports, includes addressing the specific issues of the work group and also mentions some of the other things that come out that might not be just about the work group, but might be exactly good for our strategic plan to take into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Greno-Shire.
Good morning, colleagues. I want to just quickly commend the staff and our executive director on the stated focus on that the strategic plan and the process and the eventual goals will focus on inequity and systemic racism that is facing us and has been facing us for decades and hundreds of years, but that has been illuminated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to commend the staff and all of us as commissioners as we work forward with this increased focus on this lens. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Greno-Shire. Agree entirely. Other commissioner questions or comments? Okay. I believe that, again, as you stated, Mr. Gwynn, one of the important things about this process is the stages in which we can continue to ask questions and seek, have opportunities to provide input and seek new perspectives. And I am really looking forward to this process too, and I want to thank you and everyone, all of the commission staff for your hard thinking in getting this process organized for us to engage. All right, this is an information item and no action is needed. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, commissioners, for starting us off this morning. I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Let's see, it's 10:21. We have to, do we need a 10-minute health break or are we good to go? Raise your hand if you want a 10-minute break. I'm seeing a couple of hands. Let's do a 10-minute break. Why don't we just convene again at 10:30, all right? Okay. Commissioners, welcome back. I'd I'd like to now move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Monica Martinez will serve as the acting committee chair. Commissioner Martinez, will you please convene the committee?
Thank you. I'd like to call the August 2020 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 9 agenda items. Be very grateful Chair Sloan just gave you all a break. 5 of the items are scheduled for today, with 4 more tomorrow. I'd like to remind members of the public that wish to speak on a specific item to please email your request to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253 and indicate which item you wish to speak to so we can call your name during the appropriate time. I'm just going to give the number one more time, 916-322-6253. Please make sure the request includes your full name, phone number if participating through the phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name you used to join the meeting. The meeting host will call your name and give you the ability to unmute your microphone to share your comments. After you finish your comment, the microphone will be muted by the meeting host. The first item today is 4A, strengthening and adapting educator preparation for virtual teaching and learning issues and options for 2020-21. This item is being presented by Terry Clark, Phyllis Jacobson, and Aaron Scoble. This is an information action item. Ms. Clark, will you please begin?
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. Good morning, commissioners. So item 4A is the next in a series of agenda items that you've had that focus on COVID-19. This item does a brief review of the flexibilities that were available to the 2019-20 program completers, credential holders, applicants for credentials, and applicants to programs, to preparation programs themselves, and to employers, through both your actions at the April 2020 meeting and through the governor's executive order. But now it's necessary to turn and focus the attention on the preparation of educators during the 2020-21 year. As the item points out, last year completers had completed the majority of their preparation before the pandemic hit and schools moved to virtual instruction. Whereas the candidates that are beginning their preparation now for the 2020-21 year will most likely begin through virtual instruction. These new candidates will not have had the benefit of the majority of their preparation being in person, where they're working with their faculty, their supervisors, and their TK-12 students in person in schools as the programs had been designed. So it seems essential to identify flexibilities that will be appropriate for these candidates and to identify some specific specificities that these candidates should be required to meet. The item is presented in 3 sections. One is focused on preliminary teacher preparation, and I'll present that. The second section is focused on induction for both teachers and administrators, and we have a guest speaker in that Gay Roby will present that section. And the third part of the item is focused on the early care and education, the child development permit workforce, and Phyllis Jacobson will be presenting that section. So, preliminary teacher preparation. As was reported in June, staff has been meeting weekly with a group of preliminary teacher preparation program leaders. The text in the item is focused on general education, multiple and single subject preparation, and that is because those standards have a lot of specificity in them. The newly adopted education specialist program standards have very similar specificity, but those standards are not being required of programs until the 22-23 academic year. Staff does suggest that any flexibilities that the Commission approves for the general education programs and their standards also are applied to any special education standards that have parallel requirements. The program leader group discussed the fact that the 2020-21 candidates will not only be beginning their clinical practice through virtual instruction most likely, but it's possible that for some of these candidates, they might not return to classroom-based clinical practice during their preparation program. The group wanted to identify the absolutely essential components of teacher preparation, especially the clinical practice portions, and to think deeply about how these components can be addressed in virtual instruction. The group had conversation about both synchronous virtual instruction and asynchronous virtual instruction, and has come to the conclusion that at minimum, all teacher candidates must have some experience with synchronous virtual instruction. This is where candidates are providing instruction, although it's through technology, but they're providing it to their students in real time. The program leader group also acknowledges that nothing can replace the candidate working in a classroom with a class of students. The hope is that schools will be able to open at some point during this year, and each candidate has some of that experience, but there is no assurance. So it's also possible that induction for these candidates may need to be specifically tailored to address this situation. Beginning on page 3 of the item is an analysis of the preliminary multiple subject, single subject program standards. The group felt that for standards 1 and 2 and 4, 5, and 6, that the preparation programs can meet these standards and don't need any commission action for flexibilities. The programs are going to need to make some program modifications, but these modifications are within the parameters of the adopted standards. A modification could be something along the lines of how candidates are practicing some of these TPEs is going to vary with virtual instruction compared to in-classroom instruction, and how supervisors observe and assess the knowledge and skills through virtual instruction might need to be modified, but no action by you is needed to allow that to happen. Standard 3, clinical practice, is a little different. This is the standard where the program leader group really identified some specific considerations. Standard 3 has 4 distinct parts, and I'd like to do an overview of those 4 parts and then speak specifically to Section A. Section A is the part about the organization. How is clinical practice organized? What is required as part of the organization? This is where the majority of the considerations are found. Section B is about the criteria for the school placement. What kind of school should a candidate be placed in? The program leader group did not believe that any flexibilities need to be acted on by you as a body for this section. The program leader group did point out again that synchronous instruction is essential, and of course it is required as part of the TPA. Section C of the standard is about the criteria for program supervisors. So the commission approved program has individuals who are identified to provide supervision to candidates. The program leader group does not believe any modifications are needed to this part of the standard. Section D addresses the criteria for the district employed supervisors, the person who is the master teacher or the cooperating teacher, the mentor teacher. The group does not believe any modifications should be made to this part of the standard either for the criteria for those individuals. But let's go back up to Section A. In Section A, the text on that does begin on page 3 of the item. The section addresses each part of the standard language that's in Section A of the standards, and the first number of items there are all about defining clinical practice. And it's not really changing your standards in major ways, but it is allowing some flexibilities and giving guidance to some programs. So the programs are going to need to really work with candidates to ensure that the virtual placement they're in is working for them and for the placement location. These sections talk about the developmental nature of clinical practice, and this continues to be a necessity for candidates. The section talks in addition about the range of experiences, including co-teaching, co-planning with their mentor, master teacher. It includes assessing students. It includes final student teaching. So the guidance that's in there is really to guide the programs. Then there's some very specific requirements, such as the student teaching must include a minimum of 4 weeks of solo or co-teaching. And this is where the program leader group really wanted to make it clear that this solo teaching is sustained, connected teaching experiences where the candidate has some primary responsibility. They're monitoring student learning over time, and they're building on student learning over time. They're not saying that 4 weeks is the end all and be all. What they're saying is these attributes are more important than specifically 4 weeks, because is it 4 weeks of 2 hours a day, 4 weeks of 6 hours? It's very nebulous in this virtual instruction. So this section is saying this is what programs should look at. In the area of supervision, the number of program supervisions, the group believes they should remain the same, that there should be at least 4 per quarter or 6 per semester. They agree, though, that the supervision may look very different, but there still should be data collected about candidates, how they're doing, and it's related to the TPEs. That information is used for candidate improvement. It's also used to help the supervisors and the program understand how the program is operating for program improvement. The standards have a specific requirement of 5 hours of clinical practice supervision by the district employed supervisors. The program leader group believes that this 5 hours could actually, during this virtual year 2020-21 of COVID, be met by a combination of the district employed supervisors and the programmatic supervisor, that every candidate needs 5 hours a week at minimum of support and supervision, but that it doesn't all have to come from the district employed supervisor. That teacher of record is going to have a lot of things they're doing. And if they can't give 5 hours in a week to their candidate necessarily, the program could support that and ensure that all candidates have a minimum of 5 hours. The recommendations in this part of the item from staff is that you approve the considerations identified on pages 3 through 5. If you do approve these considerations, staff would work with the preliminary multiple and single subject programs to share the information, provide guidance, and would also provide parallel guidance to preliminary education specialist programs. Before I turn the presentation over to Gay for the induction section, I do want to point out that the program leader group had reported that the weekly interactions among themselves and with staff were very valuable. It allowed staff to hear what's going on in the field, which helped us develop this agenda item. It allowed the program leaders to share questions, successes, challenges, and to just talk with other teacher educators who are also planning their 2020-21 programs. So as the item mentioned, staff is now going to begin to hold office hours this year. These office hours will be focused on specific types of preparation programs that's described in the item. Staff will be with those office hours, but the purpose of them is really to let program leaders come together as a community to share their challenges and successes, ask questions of each other and ask questions of staff, and to share some best practices. We're really excited about this opportunity. These have been noticed already in the PSD news. We'll be focusing them for multiple and single subject programs, for the education specialist programs, for the intern programs, and for teacher induction programs. If we see a need for something more, we'll add. Staff's goal is to be as supportive and helpful to programs as possible this year. This concludes the preliminary teacher preparation portion of this item. So now I will turn it over to Gay Roby for the induction.
Good morning. In preparation for induction programs supporting preliminary candidates to complete their preliminary preparation program requirements, staff met with 2 groups of induction leaders in June of 2020. The first group from the teacher induction programs and the second from the clear induction administrative services credential programs. And then we met to discuss the types of support that programs has identified as needed in looking at the preliminary program standard requirements. A table of the participants in each of these groups is found on page 8, as well as the staff moderators can be found underneath the tables as well. I'd like to note that these leaders represented a variety of program sponsors. We had individual districts, we had county office of education, we had representatives from institutions of higher education. And some of them came with a perspective of only a clear induction program, while others sponsored both preliminary and clear induction programs. First, both groups agreed that the very nature of induction supports the new paradigm. Induction is all about individualization. We meet the individual candidate's needs. Secondly, the importance of context. The work of induction takes place around the situation of the candidate and where their current job positioning places them. Many of our program leaders shared that they had already determined to bring alongside a second coach or a second mentor to provide the program performance assessment pieces for these candidates, rather than educating all coaches everywhere to try and do this work, they were going to specialize. And in many cases, it was the program directors themselves who were going to do this specialized support for them. Secondly, we all agreed that the induction program support should be grounded in the program standards. And as such, it seemed very important that the program leaders both understand and use the program standards to guide their work with induction candidates, and identifying the most important aspects from the specific standards that are written for this purpose. In the preliminary teacher program standards, it is standard 5 that addresses support for the performance assessment candidate. And this standard is mirrored in the Administrative Services Credentialing Preliminary Standards by standard 8, with just a word or a phrase that is published differently. Both outline components of support for the candidate at the preliminary program level, but also pertain very adequately to the clear induction program level support for our candidates. On page 9 of the agenda item, you will see the table for the preliminary teaching program standard 5, while page 10 has the preliminary administrative services program standard 8. The left side of each table identifies the topic of the components. We didn't put in all of the text of all those standards. It's a quite dense standard. While the right side displays the importance of induction programs knowing, understanding, and implementing each component. And they have rankings from non-applicable through essential. The leaders that met with staff confirmed that all program standards and mentors need to be aware of the aspects of the performance assessment program standards to be able to support and apply them adequately. Performance assessment staff has developed plans for additional supportive measures that we will feature throughout the year. We have webinars scheduled, new handbooks, as well as former handbooks that talk us through the assessments themselves, new office hours for a variety of candidate or categories, and meetings with specific groups. For instance, coordinator meetings will occur on a quarterly basis. We will have cycle-specific task-related meetings as well. And in fact, yesterday we started our specific hours for candidates. We didn't have anybody call in, but we're ready for when they do call in. We're set and ready to go. And then additionally, just speaking of program standards, our administrative service credentialing program candidates, they typically self-select a school site where they will complete their performance assessment work, and the programs then approve of that school site, whereas teacher induction is usually the program that places them. The leaders who met with staff emphasized the importance of the induction program leaders knowing and supporting candidates and following the criteria there. Criteria that have parts of access, attitudes of the school site, and abilities to complete the tasks within the performance assessment. Because the induction program is the one who is responsible in assisting the candidate to locate an alternative setting if their employed school selected does not meet the criteria. And then finally, there are some teachers who still need to meet the RECA requirement, and RECA support for teacher candidates is not usually provided by clear induction programs. However, we have been fortunate to have some county offices and some preliminary programs step up to the plate. There are a couple who are working together to develop resources and others who are providing preparation for the RECA. San Diego County Office of Ed is working with Point Loma Nazarene University on this project. And the Tulare County Office of Ed recently provided a workshop in this area with a positive reception by the educational field. After holding these meetings, it's very apparent that the induction leaders understand the need for additional support for these candidates, know that the commission will provide additional resources for them, and thirdly, see induction as the appropriate avenue to complete these tasks. Staff recommends that the commission endorse the specific preliminary program standards, which are standard 5 for the teacher in preliminary teachers and standards 7 and 8 for administrator induction, as presented above for use by induction programs to guide their support for candidates who need to complete a performance assessment. And then commission staff will communicate with induction programs any commission action that is taken. Staff will continue to remain in close contact with induction programs so that staff is poised to provide both guidance and support throughout the 2021 year.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll take that as my cue to move on to this part of the agenda item, where we are proposing several potential flexibilities to help ECE, or early childhood education, permit candidates and programs that have also been greatly affected by the COVID-19 situation. These programs and settings have been struggling to provide services to children and families, as well as to maintain their adult staffing. Commission staff have been meeting with several large ad hoc ECE groups, as you heard Commissioner Brown mention earlier today, that have been established by faculty. And these faculty are very concerned with addressing challenges posed by the pandemic. In addition, staff consulted with a smaller group of ECE practitioners to help inform this agenda item. The membership of this group is indicated on page 13 of the item. The ECE flexibilities have been categorized into those that are already being addressed within the Commission's present authority and resources, those that are not possible due to statute, regulation, or other constraints, and those that would require Commission action. I also note that Erin Scooble is available for any questions during today's discussion that might be related to flexibilities within the Certification Division's area of responsibility. And so for today's discussion, and in the interest of time, I would like to briefly summarize those flexibilities that have already been undertaken or implemented, and then focus on the requested additional flexibilities within the Commission's authority. Thus far, the Commission is either working on or has already completed accepting electronic transcripts for child development permits in addition to paper transcripts, providing flexibility to programs in implementing the 3-unit supervised field experience, translating and making the child development permit application and leaflet available in Spanish, providing an extension of time after the expiration for permit renewal, planning for future webinars and updated information on a new dedicated ECE webpage on the Commission's website, modifying observation hours for practicum classes to include online content within a distance learning model, and adding Zoom or phone assistance for application completion and multilingual support for permit candidates. So an additional 3 ECE flexibilities are proposed for Commission action as follows. Number 1, to allow ECE preparation programs that will be participating in piloting the adopted TPEs within their coursework and clinically practice to directly recommend candidates for the permit so long as they maintain their participation in the pilot. This would give candidates from programs an expedited route to submitting their permit applications and having these processed more quickly. Number 2, allow ECE preparation programs that have earned accreditation from the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or NAEYC, to recommend candidates for the permit as long as they maintain their NAEYC accreditation status. And number 3, add a waiver process for employer-requested child development permits. During coming months, staff will continue to participate in ongoing discussions with the field and bring any additional information as appropriate to inform the Commission. We will be moving forward with implementing the preschool development grant renewal plan and activities, and we will continue to monitor information as it becomes available from the Governor's Master Plan Committee on Early Childhood Care and Education. And now Terry Clark will summarize the staff recommendations as presented in this agenda item for potential Commission action.
So this item has addressed 3 distinct types of teacher preparation: preliminary teacher preparation, induction preparation for both teachers, administrators, and the early care and education, the child development permit preparation and licensing. On page 16, you find the staff recommendations divided into those 3 sections, and you find next steps that if the Commission takes any action on any of these recommendations, staff would work with the field as is appropriate. We're here to try to answer any questions if you have them. This concludes our presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Clark, Ms. Skubal, Ms. Jackson, and Gay Roby. Thank you guys very much. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments? There you go, Ms. Do we have any public comments? And if you can just confirm if there are not any, that'd be helpful.
There are some. They're just getting ready to call the names.
Great, thank you. As a reminder, these will we will time the public comments. They're limited to 2 minutes.
Would it be accurate that Tony Isaacs from Peach is the first person to make public comment?
Accurate, but I need to make sure that that you're hearing us. Commissioner Martinez, when you give me a thumbs up, if you can hear me.
We hear you, Mary. We heard no one before you.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think
Which is
now,
why
can you hear me?
Yes, now we hear you.
Okay, I need Tony Isaacs. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hi, this is Tony Isaacs. I'm a Peach Program Director and Adjunct Faculty at Mort Park College. I want to thank the commissioners, Terry, Phyllis, and Aaron for tackling the difficult issues presented by COVID-19 and the child development permit applications and approval. We acknowledge that the proposed accommodations to respond to COVID-19 conditions have the potential of strengthening early childhood education preparation. Peach is an early childhood higher ed collaborative with early childhood faculty from the CSUs, UCs, community college, and private IHEs. We enthusiastically thank CTC for Spanish translations of the permit application and leaflet on the website, and we also urge the translation of the application and leaflet into other languages if at all possible. We strongly support CTC's action of presenting and archiving informational webinars regarding COVID-19 provisions and flexibilities on the website, and urge that the information be also provided in multiple language and closed captioned if possible. And in addition, we are encouraged that CTC will provide a direct link labeled to the CD permit on its website, because currently under the credential link, it becomes very confusing for our CD permit applicants and mentors who report it's hard to find. So thanks again for bringing up these very important issues, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration with CTC.
Great, thank you so much, Tony, on behalf of Peach speaking today. And thank you for staying within the time limit. Who's our next public comment from?
Jan Fish, please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Yes, hello. I'm Dr. Jan Fish. I'm Professor Emerita in the Early Childhood Education Master's Program at Cal State Northridge and current adjunct there, continue working. And I'm also co-lead of Peach, as Tony has described Peach. I want to add my gratitude to the Commission and to the education preparation staff of the Commission for all of their work. I am truly inspired by the tone of the Commission meetings and discussions and stories of efforts in this real time of multiple challenges and paradigm shifts. I also want to add that Peach began a cross-sector community of practice on March 26th, as soon as we were shut down and transforming our higher ed work online. And as that has continued, we have tackled emerging issues, both within higher ed and within our colleagues' challenges, and also statewide considerations. So it's been a very important, and we really would love to be involved in the next steps as well, being a cross-segmental representation of the voice of higher ed in the state. I'm speaking to item 4A-D, recommendations that would require commission action to implement, and in the first item 1, about allowing ECE preparation programs that are participating in pilots of the implementing the TPEs and program line guidelines to directly recommend candidates via paper application for the CD permit, similar to the current VOC process, as long as programs are participating in the pilot, etc.
Hey, Dr. Fish, we are over time.
We do not support the recommendation be considered until the TPEs are totally vetted. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you for that great summary, Dr. Fish, with the limited time. Thank you so much. Are there other public comments?
Latanya Hardy, please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hello, look. Let's see. I'm getting some feedback.
You might need to mute your laptop if you're on audio.
Can you hear me now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Latanya Hardy, Los Angeles Trade Technical College. We so appreciate the Commission for tackling the difficult issues presented by COVID-19 and the child development permit applications and approvals. We appreciate the availability of phone assistance for applicants. We ask for more clarification in the nature and availability of CTC's phone assistance for CD permit applicants. How does an applicant find a CTC phone assistance and contact information? Is it on the CD permit application form? Is it designed to be assessed at a specific point in the application process on the CTC website? We further want to recommend revisions to the Child Development Professional Growth Manual. We're aware that the CTC resources are limited, and the Commission defers to ECE preparation program faculty advisors to provide professional growth advisement. We want to cite that there is no longer statewide systemic funding for ECE professional growth advisement to support training, updating, and compensating campus ECE professional growth advisor faculty. The situation and the threatened cuts to the Child Development Training Consortium and the California Early Childhood Mentor Program and to IHEs increasingly challenge the state faculty capacity to consistently support all ECE IHE students and to pursue professional growth and prepare to apply for the first or next level of the child development permit. We urge the Commission to advocate for strengthened ECE education preparation and infrastructure statewide across all IHE segments and to support advising a CTC if possible. In addition, we would like to suggest provide financial support or waive permit fees during the emergency period due to the lack of CDTC stipend. Historically, the Child Development Training Consortium has assisted permit candidates by paying for their permit application fees. However, the CDTC budget and timing for availability of the funds for this purpose is less certain at this point in time. Again, as the CDTC funding is drastically cut, we urge the CTC work with ECE professionals to promote consistent support for the child development permit applicants and ECE teachers' ongoing professional development. The inequity in compensation of K-12 and ECE teachers exacerbates the impact of the Child Development Training Consortium funding cuts on the individual ECE teachers' capability to pay fees. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hardy. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, Nancy Hurlbut, please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. I'm Nancy Hurlbut. I'm chair of the Early Childhood Studies program at Cal Poly Pomona, and I'm a co-lead of PEACH. First off, I want to very much thank Phyllis and the Commission for bringing together the early childhood group that I got to be a part of. It was very exciting. In order to give feedback on that group, Peach got together a COP that we had over 100 early childhood people give us input, which was partly went into this, the information that Phyllis shared. What I would really like to speak on is the concept of a paradigm shift that a few of you have mentioned earlier, and particularly related to letting those of us who get NACCE accredited have our candidates be automatically able to apply for the permit. I know there's community colleges that are accredited, and our accreditation is under self-study. And since NACCE is literally been around for many years, it's nationally respected, it's internationally respected, I think as a paradigm shift, this should not just be the flexibility now, but it should go forward that if a ECE program is NACCE accredited, that our candidates have a verification to move ahead and get the permit. So thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate your flexibility in this. And this was a wonderful group to participate in.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for all the public comments. Do we have additional public comment?
No, we do not have any additional requests.
Great. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Sorry for my stall tactic there, but just wanted to make sure there weren't any last minute. So commissioners, this is an information action item. Before commissioners move to the questions and comments, I want to suggest that we talk about it much the way that the staff organized the document itself and their discussion. So I would suggest that we want to talk about it in the different topics: preliminary teacher prep, the induction for teachers and administration, and the ECE permit and licensing flexibility. So I thought we could address each of the three for discussion unless there's any objections. And I'm happy to entertain objections or different ways to discuss this important matter. All right, so commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? And I'll look for you to raise your hand, and I will also look for the virtual hand. Okay, I think, yes, Commissioner Wall.
So first, I just want to thank staff for the thoughtful work that's gone into thinking about this flexibility. I want to comment that I had the opportunity to speak yesterday with a number of the private not-for-profit institutions doing teacher prep or preliminary teacher preparation. And this work is clearly addressing a primary anxiety and concern of programs about flexibility. And I think that the expression of the desire to have office hours to continue to work with programs is going to be exceptionally important, and I'm deeply appreciative of that. What I heard was two things that I wanted to share, and that is first, that programs are having real trouble placing people with districts because of the challenges that are in districts that we know about. And so there's a lot of concern about placements and how that's going to happen. And that then leads to the second part, which is just how these flexibilities will play out. And I think that this provides an excellent framework. And I think it's going to be in guidance around implementation that's going to be really important. So I'm just so pleased to see both the thinking with the working group that has happened, but then I think it's going to be the guidance to help institutions understand how they can use the flexibility that is within this to help to meet the significant preparation in the moment that is remaining challenging. And so I just wanted to offer that because I think it's really important work. And my entire call was hearing institutions talk about the anxiety that they have about what's happening.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Grenoshire.
I'll echo Commissioner Wall's comments about the thoughtful work that the Preparation Program Leader Group did under the excellent care and guidance of Terry Clark. So thank you very much. These weekly meetings were so important to the field. And the fact that we had representatives working over the summer, meeting every week, gave some comfort to the educator preparation program. So thank you very much for that. I want to also thank you for recognizing that this new reality that we are facing is not going away anytime soon. I think we were all hopeful that maybe it would just be fall semester, but the group wisely acknowledges that virtual instruction is here for at least a year, perhaps longer, and so the guidance to the field is critical. I also appreciate the recognition of the developmental nature of the candidate new teacher and the impact on induction and the relationship with our induction partners in districts and county offices of education. And I greatly appreciate that. And then finally, I had a tiny question. The item talks about that candidates must be under the supervision of an experienced educator. Terry, I'm assuming that means a credentialed teacher, but that would be really helpful if we could just name it, because I'm getting all sorts of questions about that. And again, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bruno-Shire, it does mean a credentialed teacher. What it is doing is it's also implying there's more flexibility. It is not just one assigned cooperating or master teacher and one assigned programmatic supervisor. There may be more of a group. The candidate may be working in a grade level team, and there may be additional people beyond their master teacher, but the intent is that, yes, it is a credentialed teacher who has experience and meets the kind of the criteria for either section C or section D in the standard.
Thank you, Terry.
Great, thank you. So I have Commissioner Brown and then Commissioner Francois following Commissioner Brown.
You know I'll be back for early childhood, but I just had a question about the weekly office hours. I tried to listen carefully. Is the staff providing weekly office hours for whom now? As if you didn't have enough to do, but you guys do so much.
The plan is actually for bi-weekly, and bi-weekly we do not mean twice a week. We mean every other week.
Got it.
And Dr. Jacobson Phyllis is planning to do this also for the early childhood community, but not till starting later in the fall after some of the more basic webinars. So staff, and it's in the PSDE news, we have like first and third Mondays, second and fourth Tuesdays. There'll be a Zoom link involved.
I saw that.
And that's how we're planning to roll it out.
And that will be focused primarily on preliminary TK-12 preparation and teacher and leader induction both?
They'll be separate. There'll be one for preliminary general education, a separate set of office hours for preliminary special education, a third set of office hours for teacher induction, a fourth set of office hours for intern programs. So if someone's operating an intern program and needs intern specific. Those are the four, and then early childhood coming on later in the fall that are planned at this time.
Thank you. That's great. Really appreciate that.
Okay. Commissioner Francois.
Thank you. I echo the comments made by my IHE colleagues. And I just want to say how much I appreciate Terry, you in particular, for bringing together such an outstanding group of collaborators into the work group and working so diligently through the summer. I had an opportunity the other day to speak to the two UC representatives on that working group, and they could not say enough about the process, and that everybody dug really deep, and they were very collaborative but unafraid to grapple with the complexity of this and the uncertainty of how this is all going to play out, because even with the best of intentions and the detail that is put into this, we won't know if this is actually going to work until the academic year begins. So thank you so much for that. I know that it was not easy to do. I also just want to put back out on the table, I feel like we have to acknowledge that in terms of access to virtual environments. This is going to be a challenge for many of our teacher candidates, and it's going to vary by district. It's going to vary by grade level. And I think that teacher education programs are at a significant disadvantage. And we're going to have plan Bs for this. So I appreciate the broad flexibility that's being provided. And I also want to say that, you know, being in people's homes virtually adds a level of not only a level of complexity, but there are some serious privacy concerns that I know that even some of my my acquaintances and friends who are teaching at home right now have. And so, you know, we have the best of intentions, and I appreciate that, but I also always want us to grapple with the equity issues involved in the hard decisions that we have to make.
Thank you, Commissioner Francois. Are there any more comments by the commissioners on the preliminary teacher prep? We've started talking a little bit about induction. Commissioner Sloan, Chair Sloan.
Thank you. For some reason, I can't make my raise hand function work. I've done this a lot, but I'm not quite sure why it's not.
Chair just doesn't have to raise her hand. I don't know. I have a couple of comments. I participated this summer with the work group in developing this work because I really wanted to hear from the field and ensure that I understood what people are grappling with. And they were a fantastic group, as everybody has said, and the staff was remarkable too. I also, I know we are going to move to the induction community work, but I really want to thank them in the context of our preliminary credential work, because I have only heard the ways in which our induction community has been willing to step up and do new things with their practice in this work. I mean, honestly, it's been really uplifting to have them. I want to also say, you know, it was through this work with my colleagues this summer that I really did get to start seeing the ways in which we can shift our thinking and really get to the essence of what it is that we are doing for our new teachers and design new practices with our field and with our districts. And we, teacher education programs, we're going to have to think differently about our work. We're trying to create these guidelines that will offer you the opportunities to be sure that you're keeping the eye on the end game and the ball, and that is ensuring that we're preparing these new teachers. But at the same time, really opening up to the possibilities of what you can do with your district partners. It will mean letting go of some structures that you have in place. It will mean that you probably can't ask your district partners, gosh, can we have these candidates in here for this 3-week observation period of time? Can they go to 7 different classrooms and see what's going on? That's a very difficult thing to ask of districts right now. But you can work together with them and doing other things. So I am encouraging us, higher education and preparation programs, to be flexible in our own thinking. And that is what we are trying to be at the commission as well. Offer guidelines to ensure that our new teachers are getting what they need. And at the same time, our schools are getting what they need, so that we're really focused on our TK-12 students. There are a lot of questions in the field, as Commissioner Wall mentioned too. We've also had some letters coming in asking for specific guidance about, well, what does it mean for a different evaluation protocol? How many minutes, you know, how long are our supervision sessions supposed to last? Now, some of these things are going to get hashed out in our office hours and in the many queries that we are going to have. And we're going to continue to provide guidance to the field on those particular kinds of questions. But for now, I would encourage programs and districts to think creatively about the kinds of assistance and facilitation new teachers need in thinking through their practice.
The other thing I want to talk about is the performance assessment. It's a question that keeps coming up, and it's a big one for the field. So I want to say that last year, as you know, or for our spring 2020 graduates, we were given an executive order that allowed us to provide our graduates with a preliminary credential and the opportunity to complete their performance assessment during their first years of teaching, ideally when they were induction programs where their induction support providers could support their process through that. And we have been asked many times about whether this EO can be extended. So I want you to know that we are working with the legislature and the governor's office around this. At the moment, we still have our relief valve of the variable term waiver. So I want to remind people of that. However, if we do get an opportunity to again consider moving assessment into our induction years, here's some of my thoughts on this that I'd like to share with you. One thing I want us to remember is that these performance assessments were developed as opportunities for teachers to demonstrate their practice. For us as an accrediting agency, for us as teacher educators, to get a glimpse of their practice, to have an understanding of where they are in their practice, to ensure that their practice meets standards for teaching students, and it gives us higher education programs and the commission information about how our candidates are doing and what they're doing. It's been invaluable in many ways to programs to help us grow and learn. So we want this work to be authentic. We want to be sure that if teacher candidates are engaging in this very big piece, that they are doing it in a way that's authentic, that is working with their students, that is really demonstrating their teaching in those contexts. We don't want them trying to piece things together and having the anxiety of needing to video students in a synchronous environment when our schools and parents are very uncomfortable about that at this point in time. So that's one reason why we might consider the opportunity to move it out of an online environment, and when we can do in practice, in-person teaching again, move it there. The second thing I want us to consider is, as I mentioned about our induction programs, they're gearing up this year to provide the supports for many candidates who are doing their performance assessment during induction. The other thing we have really tried to do with our performance assessments is make this an assessment for learning. We've heard over and over again about candidates who have engaged in this work and have really learned about their practice by doing this work. That's what we want it for, and we're hoping that induction providers are also going to use this work as feedback to candidates and helping them grow their practice and identify the kinds of things that they can continue to work on in their teaching. The third thing I'd like to address is the concern that many people have had that this is too much to expect of a new teacher in their first year of teaching. Yes, there's a lot that we expect of new teachers in their first year of teaching. This doesn't necessarily have to happen in their first year of teaching either. They have up to 5 years to complete the performance assessment. However, I would say I would really encourage this work to be done while they're in the care of an induction program and while they're working with peers across the state who are also doing this work and getting that feedback. But if our induction providers are gearing up to do it this year, imagine how much more they can know about this next year in supporting people to do this work. The last thing I'll say about this, which again, when we talk about silver linings, I think this could be a silver lining. If we do this, not only is it going to it'll relieve some anxiety of programs who are, all of us are innovating and figuring out a lot this year. But imagine the opportunity for programs to see what their graduates are doing 1 year, 2 years out. That's been one of the hardest things for IHEs to have access to. But if our teacher candidates, our graduates, are doing the performance assessment 1 or 2 years out, and we as programs get that information back, not just their scores, but one of the most valuable things is we can look at video of what they're doing, their lesson planning, et cetera. That's giving IHEs a tremendous amount of authentic feedback about what graduates are doing, things that we haven't really had access to before. So that, I think, is a silver lining. That is all I am going to say on the performance assessment work. And we're going to see how this plays out. And those are my personal opinions about this work.
Great. Thank you for really putting an exclamation mark to the complexity and the flexibility and the collaboration that's really going to be needed during this time. You also helped us move into talking about the induction conversation around preliminary program standards 5 and 7. So are there any questions that are lingering around the teacher educator prep section? And do folks have specific questions around induction before we move into talking about early childhood? Commissioner Hein.
Yeah, I actually, after Chair Sloan was talking, it made me think, so I'm not really going to talk about induction so much, but I want to go back to the TPA for a minute. It almost seems like busy work at this point if we are giving students a teaching credential to teach, and then we're asking them within 5 years to go back and prove that they can teach effectively, when it seems like their work in induction and their principal evaluation would be proof enough to really show that they can teach, because the point of the TPA is that you can prove before you go into the classroom. But if we're giving them the access to go into the classroom, virtual or non-virtual, doesn't it seem redundant? Am I the only one that thinks that? I feel that just a question for thought.
All right.
Commissioner Martinez?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move forward if that's okay, unless Ms. Clark, you want to answer?
I was just going to provide a little context to Commissioner Hines' comment.
That'd be great.
Site administrator evaluations are done in every district in whichever way the district does it, and they vary a lot. What the TPA, I think, gives us is common rubrics about specific aspects of the TPEs, which are really the CSTP. So I think there's a wealth of information there for the induction program, and as Commissioner Sloan shared, for the teacher preparation program to think about their own improvement practices. So I do think there's a benefit for the candidate to have to say, yeah, I have shown I can do this, and for the preparation and for the community as a whole.
I just follow up real quick and then I'll be done. So if we give a candidate a license to teach, and they've been teaching for 5 years, and then they go to complete their TPA and they don't pass their TPA, are we going to take away the credential from them and have them leave the classroom?
Ms. Clark?
I think the teacher would be able to retake that portion of the TPA where they were not as successful. And Amy Rising is on here also, but the TPA, a passing score on the TPA is across rubrics that educators as a whole have decided are essential attributes for teaching. So I would think anyone who's been teaching successfully over a number of years, as long as they follow the instructions, if they read the guidebook, will pass the TPA, and hopefully they'll do it within those first years of induction.
Madam Chair, can I just add one piece to that? That essentially what the executive order provided for was candidates to complete the performance assessment and pass it for their clear credential. So there wouldn't be a removal of their preliminary credential, but it would be required before issuance of their clear credential.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for that. And I see that Commissioner Francois, you had your hand up. Did you take it back down, or? Do you have a comment or question?
No, I was going to pass after listening to Commissioner Hines' comments, but I do want to say from a teacher education perspective, not from a preparation perspective rather than the induction perspective, I do worry that one of the things that I appreciated most about the development of the TPAs is that it really focused on deep knowledge of the students in front of you in order to get and bringing that knowledge into your practice in order to better meet the needs of individual students. And I do worry that in a virtual environment, that's going to look a lot different. And I worry that our candidates are going to make some really broad assumptions about the students in front of them because they will not have had the opportunity to get to know the students in really deep ways. And for me, it kind of feels like if you don't do that, if you don't bring in your knowledge of student, deep knowledge of your students, then the TPA can be almost a contrived kind of assessment. Like it does not feel like doing it in a digital environment is going to give us what we work so hard to get over the last few years in the terms of the teacher performance assessment. I think that moving it into the induction year, candidates, well, they'll be teachers by then, they will have opportunities, multiple opportunities, deeper opportunities to know their student and to demonstrate how that influences practice. So I do worry that we're keeping the option. I appreciate the flexibility, but programs will allow their candidates to do this during their preparation year. And I feel like it doesn't make sense. And so I appreciate us continuing the conversation about situating it in induction. I wasn't as articulate as I probably should have been, Commissioner Martinez, but that's because I put my hand down.
Sorry, I had written your name and then I saw it too late. But I think Chair Sloan's gonna come back around and maybe wrap this area up, and we can stay with induction or move into early childhood.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I don't know if I'll be articulate either, but the conversation is making me think further, and I appreciate the question about is the TPA busy work? And I also want to say that when it is, I believe when students are doing this, and students, teachers, whomever is engaged with this, in the context of real practice, their practice and their work with students, as Commissioner Francois was talking about. And they're getting the guidance, the kinds of guiding questions that were created in the Cal TPA and others that are really asking them to look at the opportunities that they're providing all of their students. That's a really equity, justice-focused kind of instrument that is focusing new teachers on particular things and in particular ways. And it shouldn't be an add-on to what they're doing in induction. It should be integrated and used as part of their mentoring, I think, and guidance. And yes, it will require them to organize their artifacts of practice in ways that we can all access them to, we being scorers and other educators. But I do believe, again, it's an assessment for learning, that they are learning. The other thing I will say about this is if we do move this into induction, that programs are still responsible for getting them ready for this assessment. Pre-service programs, preliminary programs are, and programs already have that work embedded. All of our programs have the formative experiences embedded using some of the similar language of the assessments, so that as a field, we have this huge vocabulary to talk about what education is. And we have more acronyms than anybody can SWATA, whatever I don't even know what I'm saying, being inarticulate. But when we used these performance assessments, we we speak a common language in a sense, and we're focused on common things that are really helping us grow our work. And that I think is not busy work. So the other thing is the equity piece. I do think we need to have a conversation about, do we just make this an option, or do we say, if it is an option to move into induction, that this is what we're doing this year? The last thing I want is for there to be candidates feeling like they haven't gotten the same opportunities as other candidates have, or programs trying to scramble and create inauthentic ways to get programs or to get candidates through it. We don't want people just getting through it. We want people to learn from it, and we want people to be able to focus on what's really important in these moments.
Great, thank you for that. Other comments around preliminary teacher prep, induction for teachers and administrators before we move on to early childhood permit and licensing flexibilities? Great, okay. I appreciate the conversation, and I should probably just anticipate Commissioner Brown will raise her hand. But there are a few areas here that we're being asked to respond to. And I will just open this up for comments by the commissioners, and I will indeed lead with Commissioner Brown.
All right. Okay, this is the run up to lunch, but this is, you know how important this is. Our youngest citizens are very important. The first thing I want to say to everyone, whether you're in front of my screen or you're listening, is that this staff is so dedicated to doing well, right, and inclusive. And this small group that we put together with Phyllis and Aaron and Terry is just remarkable in terms of it just jumping on board and working as a field. It's just been great. And you know, of course, that my biggest goal in being put on this commission was in no small part to bring the early childhood education into an equitable place at the education table. So this is one of the reasons that I asked the question I did of Terry. And Terry, thank you for being so clear about it, because many things are being done now in a bigger way and maybe in a more accelerated way to bring us into this work. And I really appreciate it. There are two specific questions that I wanted to say, but before I ask those questions, I have 2 points. One is, you just need to know, and everyone needs to know, that what we're trying to do in early childhood education is we only have preliminary teacher preparation. We have no induction. And we're just now getting started on TPEs, in part because we've been over here on the left side. And the second one is Commissioner Francois's comments all this morning just keep ringing in my brain and touching my heart, because we really do need to watch out for access in this virtual world. And we also need to really pay attention to privacy. And as continuing the early childhood preparation program this summer has shown us, because we've been working in the summer, it's been a real issue. And our systems have had to work very diligently with both private and public education institutions to try to get access in terms of just getting our students access to a Chromebook instead of just using their phone, trying to find an, oh, maybe open, oh no, Starbucks. So with that idea, I think we need to look at how this work with virtual world will affect both teacher preparation and future teaching as a whole. In early childhood developmentally appropriate practices, the first thing we look at is the deep knowledge of the whole child in the context of their family and community. And that's being accelerated all across the educational preparation and the education teaching system. So those are my comments. Now to my two questions. The first question I have, and I've gotten a number of questions from people in the field, is the next steps related to early care and education about moving forward with implementing the provisions of the professional development grant renewal. So there have been questions about the provisions, the deliverables, the timeline. That's my first question. And then the second question is on the recommendation about the pilot. We've got questions coming from not only Peach, but other community college queries about who's in the pilot, what the pilot is, when will the TPEs, what part does that play? So those are my two questions, the grant renewal, the PDG grant, and the piece about the pilot and the TPEs and relationship and details.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Phyllis, do you want to take this?
Hi, Phyllis.
Very much. I really appreciate your questions, Commissioner Brown, because these are things that have been very much on my mind as of late as I think about how we're going to implement the provisions of the preschool development grant. So let me tell you a little bit about what those buckets look like. Within the grant, we are trying to help the field move towards competency-based preparation, assessment, helping the field to move forward in ways that are productive. And so as part of that grant, there are several large kind of pieces. And the first of those pieces we've alluded to earlier today. That is helping to establish a consistent communication base with the field. We're working to do office hours. We're working to get mailing lists. We're working to get an official ECE separate page on our website that will provide the appropriate links and help people get connected. So that is one infrastructure building piece of the work. A second big foundational piece actually of this work is looking at the implementation of the teaching performance expectations, competency-based instruction within the field. Another major piece of that is looking at the development of a performance assessment that is formative in nature, that fits with preparation, that fits with this field, lives and breathes and works in the various settings in which our candidates operate. And then the last major aspect of this work is helping to move programs forward with looking at the issue of the quality of the preparation provided, building some form of peer review process, some form of accreditation, if you will, to help the field look at the quality basis for what they're providing to candidates, and to also help candidates and the public have an assurance that the programs that are preparing these candidates are effective. So that is the short summary of the work that's being done. And when we're rolling this out, we're starting in the fall. Right now, we're still working on the infrastructure to assure that we have access to the funding and all of the pieces and parts that go into making the foundational pieces work. And so we will be coming out shortly with a calendar of events. We'll be starting to plan our webinars to inform the field and help connect the field. You also asked about the pilot. So the pilot is a little bit more nebulous in terms of planning, but we have a vision. We think that any preparation institution that is working towards implementing the teaching performance expectations, or the performance expectations anyway, in early childhood education would be invited and able to participate in the pilot. This is not exclusionary. We want to help the field as a whole move towards implementing these. And so it would be an open invitation. It's a community of practice, if you will, to add to the growing list of communities of practice in the field. The specifics of this have not yet been worked out yet because we're waiting to implement the webinars and so on to give programs an opportunity to hear about these and to figure out how it can best work in their particular situations. Does that help?
It really does, because I've had a lot of questions. Oh, is there already a pilot started? Or could my program get into it? What do I need to do? So it's good to just hear out loud. It will be an open invitation. and there's no specifics yet, so nobody's been left behind who is interested. Those were the kinds of questions I was getting. The other questions I was getting about that is the way this recommendation was framed. There was a, well, what if you start the pilot and then you drop out? Do you still get that sort of VOC opportunity? And it just started sounding a little bit in the weeds yet. So to know that there's not specifics is actually better.
Can I add just a little bit about why we made that recommendation? It may seem a little bit premature in that context because we haven't yet begun the pilot. But if the commission were to take action to authorize this, it would not be effective until such time as we actually had a pilot and programs participating in it. But it sets the stage for programs to know that if they did this, in a sense, it's almost a carrot, because the main impetus behind this is that we heard loud and clear that candidates were having trouble and difficulty figuring out how to fill out the permit applications, how to get them submitted, how long it took to get them through the process. And so this is a way to expedite that while at the same time not giving up on the quality of the preparation that they're receiving and taking a look at that. It's actually an expedited process in the sense that no candidate would be recommended by a preparation program that hasn't met the requirements for the level of the permit that they're applying for. This isn't a free pass.
Right.
So it's simply a way to help those candidates access the system and get those applications processed more quickly.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Because that's the piece that the community colleges that do the early childhood teacher preparation are really interested in participating in. So that's great. Thank you.
And Phyllis, I just have a quick question about the waivers, a little kind of building off of that. So it's kind of two-part. So as the details for the waiver for the CD permits are defined, what kind of guardrails will help maintain the teaching quality? So that's kind of a bigger question. And then a more technical question, what's the implication of having the LEA employer requested waivers for EC candidates, and why only LEAs?
So here's where I'm going to defer to my colleague in certification. Erin Skubal has been waiting to have her chance to explain this to you.
Okay, Erin.
I was wondering if I get the opportunity to speak. So yes, thank you for that question. I'll start with the second half of your question and why the need for LEAs to submit the application. Our waiver authority, the authority for the commission to grant waivers of documents, rests in Education Code 44225, subsection M, and it specifically lists county offices of education, charter schools, employing agencies, and institutions of higher education as those that can request waivers. So typically, because these waiver requests come from employing agencies, that's historically been the only way that the commission has granted waivers. That was the reasoning behind including that as the impetus for these waivers. Now, we do have the program sponsor variable term waiver now. That is a first of its kind. We've never had programs request waivers before. Because child development permits aren't done through an approved program, we can't allow that pathway for those waivers. So it can't be requested by the program sponsor because there technically is no program sponsor. We're working towards that goal though, to create these programs. But as of right now, it would have to be requested by a local education agency. So a school district or a county office of education that oversees a program could request those waivers.
Great, thank you. And then did you address the one around the waivers and teacher quality, the guardrails for that?
So if you wouldn't mind expanding on, you know, what type of information you're looking for with that question. I'm not just thinking like what
just thinking about
sections of the permit requirement we'd be waiving. Is that kind of what you're?
Well, I think it's mostly like, do you feel like there's anything within that needs to be?
Well, so these waivers, yeah, okay. So these waivers would be issued for no more than 1 year. And really all they're doing is waiving a requirement temporarily to give an individual additional time to meet that requirement. So yeah, we're definitely not permanently waiving any requirements. It's just a waiver of time to allow someone additional time. Likely these would be used for the supervised field experience component if an individual wasn't able to meet that requirement, or a waiver for the experience if someone's coming in through the experience route and they were unable to obtain the 350 hours of experience that they need for the permit. That would be likely what we'd be waiving. And then as they're working on that permit or on that waiver for the 1 year, they could then use that experience to meet the requirement for the full permit.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. It helps my understanding. So I don't see any other questions. This has been like a really robust conversation around these three topic areas, but this is an information and action item. So we do need to make a motion to take action on the recommendations. And so I'm wondering if there's a commissioner who feels like they can put together a motion for this, or if we need any kind of summary from our amazing staff on what would be needed for a motion. So do I have a motion about approving these recommendations to the standards? Chair Sloan.
I move to, and again, I'll ask staff to, I move to approve recommendations by staff made in this agenda item.
Accept staff recommendations found on page 16 of the item. I think that would work quite well.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the recommendations on page 16. Do I have a second? Okay, I just saw Commissioner Barnes.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I just muted myself. I think we need to move now to, is there any other further discussion? And if not, we'll have the recording secretary call for the vote. I'm looking for virtual and real hands. All right, without seeing any, I believe the recording secretary can call for a vote. Each member will need to respond with an aye, nay, or abstain.
Kirsten Barnes.
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney.
Aye.
Johanna Howig.
Aye.
Alicia Hine.
Aye.
Terry Jackson.
Aye.
Kevin Kahn.
Aye.
Jane Marks.
Aye.
Cynthia Martin.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for the robust conversation. Now, I think I heard Commissioner Brown talk about lunch, but I think we're gonna just kind of plow through and continue going with 4B, unless the CTC staff object, or any commissioners. So we're gonna keep going. I'm just gonna check one thing. Mary Sandy, may I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think we will have time to get through 4B, or do you want to move to, or do you think we need to move through 4C?
We think that 4B is not a long item, long being relative. The last item was a pretty long item. And so we were hoping we could take up 4B and then reconsider whether we need a lunch break long enough for people to grab some lunch, and then maybe we keep going. The hope is that we would get through 4D today. We can postpone 4E to tomorrow, and if we need to postpone 4D as well, we need to break for closed session by 2.
Great. Okay. And 4B is like Mary said, shouldn't be too long. 4C is a bit probably longer. So let's with very little, let's just kind of plow forward and then entertain potentially a very short break for lunch, less than what we normally do when we're actually in person. Okay, so 4B.
Commissioner Martinez, I'm sorry to do this, but I just wanted to let you know that the Governor's Early Childhood Policy Council Workforce Committee has moved their meeting to 12 o'clock. So I just wanted you to know I'll be darkening soon.
Okay, and then you'll be back.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner Brown. Appreciate that. Okay.
You muted, Monica.
So sorry. I'm so used to hitting the mute button. It's almost automatic now. All right. 4B is proposal to defer the transition of Pupil Personnel Services Program to the 2019 program standards to academic year 2022-23. This item is being presented by Karen Sacramento. This is an action item. Ms. Sacramento, will you please begin?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As said, item 4B does propose to defer the transition of the Pupil Personnel Services programs to the 2019 program standards by 1 year to academic year 2022-23. The Commission adopted new program standards for PPS programs in April of 2019, which included program preconditions and standards for PPS school counseling, school psychology, school social work, and the child welfare attendance added authorization. At the time, the Commission also approved a transition window that required that all programs be fully aligned to the new standards by fall 2021 for all candidates enrolled in these programs starting in academic year 21-22. Recently, staff has worked with numerous programs who are deeply focused on supporting candidates now within the current challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic brings. And this has impacted approved programs' ability to move ahead with the necessary program transitions within this timeline. While some programs are able to begin to implement the new standards, others have expressed significant barriers to being able to restructure curriculum and fieldwork in order to meet this 2021 transition deadline. So due to this situation, staff recommends that the Commission adopt a revised date by which all Pupil Personnel Services programs must be in alignment with the 2019 program standards, moving the date from fall 2021 to fall 2022. And if a program chooses to transition earlier, they may be allowed to do so. This change would mean that all new candidates are enrolled after July 1st, 2022 for the academic year 22-23 would be enrolled in a program aligned to the new standards. And if the Commission approves this, staff will develop a program sponsor alert outlining the adjusted implementation dates. So I'd be glad to take any questions about this that you may have.
Great. We'll now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay. Just going to give it a little time to make sure no one's jumping in there. All right, so we'll move to commissioners. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And I'll look for the virtual hands. Yeah, I think this one is pretty straightforward. Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. I would have been surprised, Commissioner Barnes, if you did not raise your hand, so thank you for that.
Just a comment. I understand the need for it. I know when this first came up, I was getting calls and emails from people. And when we first went shut down, my first reaction was like, no, let's wait and see. I mean, it's been 20 years. You know, we spent 2 years updating these. They're 20 years outdated as it is. But I know, we have to be flexible. I'm trying to revamp what your current system is, then bringing on something new. I just know, I just concerned for the stuff that they're not going to get, but at the same time, we're in unprecedented times. So while it's frustrating, at least, it's a year out, and I'm sure programs will be maybe, working on things. I mean, thinking of what we're in now, we could have another update because we don't have anything in there addressing a pandemic and distance counseling and things like that. So it's almost like every program could have an update, teaching, admin, whatever. So, I support it. It's just kind of frustrating, just like everything is right now, but I understand the need for it.
Yep. appreciate you sharing the frustration and recognizing what this kind of calls for at this time. Any other questions by commissioners? I'm looking virtually. I'll switch between my screens, see if there's raised hands. Okay. I don't think I see any. And if there is, someone's going to have to unmute and yell at me. This is an action item.
Commissioner Hind has a question.
All right. Go for it, Commissioner Hind. Sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I just have a question. Do we need to put an actual date on it, or can we say something more like X number of months after shelter-in-place orders have been lifted? Because what if this goes on for a much longer time and programs aren't able to complete the work because they are focused on other things? I don't want to limit us to having a date set, and then it would be horrible if that happened, and then we couldn't complete it. Or it could work better too. If this all ends sooner than expected, then we have, a 6-month time limit or whatever for programs to update. Just a thought.
Terry, would you like to address that?
Yes. This is set up that if a program can move faster, it can definitely move faster. So it doesn't say all programs need to wait till 22, 23. It just says that for those programs that are not able to get the planning done, to get it through the academic senate at the institution for the approval, that they would have the extra year. We hope this is not going to happen and need to be longer, but if it does, we'll come back to you again. The challenge is if we make it a certain number of dates, so we just thought it was the best approach to ask for one additional year now, and hopefully we won't have to ask again, but we know how to write this item if we do have to ask for an additional year.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. And thank you for flagging that, Rhonda, for me. Okay, this time I really don't think I see any questions, but I appreciate Rhonda's got my back and she will jump in there if I missed out. And so I think what I'd like to do is, since this is an action item, do I have a motion? And the motion would read something like this. All right, Kristen Barnes, do you need some help with the motion, or you got it?
You can help. That would be great.
All right. Basically, it's a motion to defer by 1 year the deadline for all commission-approved pupil personnel services programs to be required to be in alignment with the 2019 program standards. You hear by motion that?
Yes,
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes. I make a motion for everything you just said.
All right.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay, Commissioner Hind has seconded. And so I believe that unless there's any further discussion, and I don't see any hands up, so you guys can't all fit on my screen, so it's hard to go between 3 sections. Without further discussion, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with an A, nay, or abstain.
Kirsten Barnes.
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Alicia Hine.
Aye.
Perry Jackson.
Aye.
Kevin Kern.
Aye.
Jane Marks.
Aye.
Cynthia Martin.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Well, that was a quick item. It is 12:03, and our next item is 4C, possible pathways for current education specialist credential holders interested in earning the new education specialist credential. I am going to just do a time check again with, particularly with the commission's staff who provide more wisdom than what I can offer about timing, and ask Mary Sandy if you think we should take a break, a lunch, or Sloan, either one.
We're at your pleasure. We definitely would like to get through both of the next 2 items before we break for closed, and we could go with the first one now and then take a break for lunch, or we could take a break now and have a slightly working lunch if we're not through. But I think we can get through both items within about 90 minutes max between the two. That's my estimate. So what's your pleasure, commissioners? Do you want to break now or proceed with one more item? Thumbs up if you'd like to break now. Thumbs up if you'd like to break now.
All right, looks like the second screen. So what if we do a bit of a compromise and we just take a 15-minute break and then power through? Does that sound, can we get some thumbs up on that one?
Okay.
Let's just take
Sounds
a quick
great.
break. All right, so it is 12:05. Let's be back at 12:20. Does that sound right, Director Sandy?
That's totally fine.
All right, see you guys at
See you then.
12:25. Thank you.